Sometimes I have to make you start over. That's always awkward. Okay, guys, so we've got the elite team back. We got Debbie, a lot of you know Debbie Hart. We got Nathan Osmond here. They're both at the same branch with the elite team, so they're kind of tag teaming today.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we're excited for it. I was talking to Nathan, and I grew up in Orem, and he's an Osmond. So if you're from Utah, you know what that means.
Great furniture.
So yeah, there you go. And
Slim Fast.
so he was talking about his presentation style of edutainment, right? Education.
That's
I love that. Love that tag phrase. So we're excited to have him here. And so this is a CE credit. So what I need you to do, you guys on Zoom, sorry, Kathy, sorry, Nate. I don't think you're getting, you're not CE credit in other states, right?
Just Colorado.
Colorado? Wow, we don't have anybody in Colorado here. We got New York and Oregon, Washington. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Oh, hey, Alex, how are you? So you're gonna have to email. There will be a title slide or a contact slide on there. Maybe we can get in the chat as well. You have to email you guys that are here in Utah, your license number. There might even be a qualifier, like a keyword or something you need to email in there to get that.
Will be for the Zoom people.
There will be. Okay, there definitely will be, not a maybe, so pay attention. And I think you have to turn your videos on, at least for a second. Yeah, she's got to look you in the eyeballs. So Nathan coming up, or whoever's starting.
All right.
And we're gonna try and do this whole fancy screen thing, and maybe I'll even just.
My goodness.
Isn't that
You're looking
awesome?
proud today. This is awesome. Well, welcome to all our Zoomers out there. I'm Nathan Osmond. I'm Donnie and Marie's favorite nephew, so that's where I get my big teeth. But it's good to be here. I'm a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. We're gonna have some fun, and we want to kind of make this fun. So today, I thought it would be fun if we played a little bit of a game. I'm going to skip my intro from Kevin O'Leary there, but I'm going to play a game of Let's Make a Deal, okay? Monty Hall here. I want to see who's prepared, because you got to be prepared in this business, right? All right. So I want to see anything you have that might say the elite team in Security Home Mortgage. Bingo, right there. Okay, you get some playing cards. All right, let's see this. Who has a business card? Their business card. All right there. Okay, this came up. Check it out. There you go. Now, let's see. Anybody have your Instagram page you can show me? First one to show me your Instagram page. On camera here too. Oh, gotcha. All right, we got that for you.
That was bad. Damn.
Now, who has a measuring tape?
Oh my God.
You do? Okay, let's see if you got a measuring tape. You gotta have these tools, guys. Come on. Oh, now she's got two. Look at this. Oh, here we go. Awesome. Awesome, you guys. Well, my name's Nathan Osmond, and where's the camera? Oh, the camera's right there. That's like trying to show the wrong camera.
I wanted to show the screen, so.
Guys, it's good to be here. Like you said, yes, I do come from a musical family. It's true, the Osmonds. The number one question I'm asked is, who's your daddy? Right? My father's Alan Osmond. He started Stadium of Fire down in Provo here when I was just a kid. And I grew up on the set of the Donnie and Marie shows, watching my family and uncles and Aunt Marie, of course, perform. I tell everybody I'm the Osmond that didn't lose 50 pounds on Nutrisystem. All right. But, my grandfather George started Osmond Real Estate back in the day. How many of you ever heard of that brokerage? You ever heard of them? No, he sold it to my uncle who sold it last year. But real estate's always been part of the Osmond family and our story. In fact, for the last 12 years, I've been out on the road teaching real estate on top of my 4 number ones in country. I love music, but I had a chance to get out there with Tony Robbins and Kevin O'Leary and all these guys to teach real estate. In fact, this in 2019, I did 277 live events in 201 cities. I was never home, and it was hard. And then what came up in 2020? Yeah, something none of us saw coming, right? COVID, and it just completely shut down our industry. And so I was forced to pivot. How many have ever been forced to pivot in life? Anybody? And so, yeah, 2 times. And then that's the thing is that you got to be flexible. I thought to myself, what can I do with all this real estate knowledge? And, you know, I got a job and I was working as VP of marketing and sales for a company until my wife, who was the marketer for my friend Brett, who's in our business, she said, Nathan, you got to check this thing out. You know, she was doing cash out refis and promoting all that with her design and build business. But the thing is that she said, Nathan, you could do this. And I thought, yeah, you know, I said, of course I could. But I hate that I got to take a test to get a job. Who's with me on that? Anybody love that idea? Yeah, I hated that idea. All I could picture were, you know, calculators and glasses. And I never saw the people side of this business. Is this a people business? Yes or yes?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you hate people, they got drugs will calm you right down, okay? But the thing is, you gotta love people if you're gonna do this business. If you want to be successful in this business, we've taken somewhat of a dry topic today and we've made it really a lot more fun. We like to put the fun in funding, you know, that's our slogan. And the thing is, I hope that you guys will enjoy this because like I was telling Jeff today, what's learning pleasure is remember. Why is it important for us to remember what we're learning here today? Why is it important to know this stuff?
So we can apply it in our business.
You gotta be able to apply it. You know, that's the thing is that if you don't know your stuff, can people see through that real fast?
Yeah.
Big time. And so we want to teach you the things that you're gonna need to pull out because it just might be that one little bit of extra knowledge and tidbit that you know that's gonna save the deal, right? It's not so much what you know, but what you do with what you know. So you gotta be able to apply it. You know, they flew me out to New York and I was the keynote speaker for the largest board of realtors in the nation, Long Island Board of Realtors, LIBOR. I'm not even a realtor, guys. What does that say? Any skill is learnable. You could even learn from an Osmond. But you know what? We like to be compliant. And I'm coming up on my 2-year mark here in this business. And so I have to have the 2 years, right, to be able to teach this. So Debbie's got her license to teach this. And we always like to be compliant. So we're going to go ahead and turn the time, most of it over to you. But I did want to kind of just start off the beginning, just to quiz these guys. Can I quiz them about what loan programs are out there? Go ahead and tell me what type of loan programs are out there.
Conventional.
The biggest ones, the biggest ones. I know there's a whole bunch, but let's talk about like the main top FHA, conventional, which means
USDA.
when you say conventional, but some people like, what does that mean? When you're talking conventional. Okay, so we're talking Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So when you hear those two, I always try to explain that to people that means conventional. Because sometimes they don't know the difference, right? So you mentioned FHA, conventional, what else? VA, what is that for? That's right, I'm an honorary command sergeant major. I love working with our military and we do a lot of VA loans. Now, just because somebody's a veteran, does that mean you just take a VA? What do you think? You know, the very first loan I ever did was for a veteran and we actually went conventional because it's not one size fits all. We like to consider ourselves, Debbie and I, as consultants. Would you say that, Debbie, right? It's not one size fits all. So even though somebody might be VA, doesn't mean that they're going to go VA. So just know that. What are some other ones? Got 3 so far. Conventional, FHA, VA, USDA. What's the difference between rural and USDA? There is none. There is none. What is there people out there?
It's like you're trying to trick me.
There you go. Yeah. B is what predicted, right? Because I always, what does that have to do with real estate? We're going to get into all of these different programs, but there's another one here specific to Utah through the FHA program. Who knows what I'm talking about? Utah housing. And we do a lot of Utah housing. We're going to explain the pros, the cons, and what you need to know about each one of these programs. Because, you know, a good friend of mine, he told me this story once. He says, you know, my dad was one of the top guys at Word Perfect. He was doing really well financially, right? But his mom got cancer. And during the last few days of her life, they decided, let's go down to RC Willey. Let's buy us a VCR. Okay. Now, y'all remember VCRs, right? Well,
Beta or VHS?
that's, I'm glad you bring that up. There's a difference, isn't there? Some can rewind a lot faster, some have different heads, some have surround sound. And this guy, I don't want to give him a bad name, but he said, you know, RC Willey, and they weren't hurting for money. If he had just taken the time to ask the right questions, if he had taken the time to maybe share a few of the features of this, my friend's mom could have spent the last couple hours of her life enjoying much better entertainment. And he says, it's irked me all these years that my mom spent her last several hours watching a $100 VCR. You know what I'm saying? That she could have had the best. And this guy, it would have just taken a little bit more knowledge about what the features were to be able to sell them the best. They could have afforded it, but that's the point. As a realtor, you are in sales. You need to know your programs. And I know it's kind of a dry topic, but today we're going to have fun. which is why I'm super excited to turn the time now over to Debbie Hart. Debbie Hart is amazing. Just like myself, she too has spent a lot of time in the industry of seminars and training and teaching. I'll let her introduce herself. But guys, give me a big round of applause for my friend, Debbie Hart. Take it away, Debbie. We had a game show here.
Yeah, that was fun.
Fun.
Thanks, Nathan. So good to be here, you guys. So today you do get CE credit for this class. I know these guys have all kinds of amazing trainings and different topics here, but today you do get credit, but only if you fill out this paper. It's either this one in front of you or there's another one over there with your name and your brokerage and your license number so that I can bank those hours for you. And everything agents need to know about lending. Yeah, super fun. I know I've done this topic here with Mike Tabla before. We did a shorter version with fee credit. We left the loan matrices here.
What do you want them to do online? Are some local? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone in Utah or Colorado can also get CE credit for today's class. I'm going to call out, I think we actually have to do 5 for the 2-hour ones. I'm going to call out 5 keywords and you just need to email me 4 of them by the end of the class. And then with all the same information, first name, last name, brokerage, license number, phone number, email address, which you'll get when you email me. Send me all that info. I'll repeat that again at the end, but you'll have 5 keywords. You send me, email me 4 of those, and you can get CE credit for participating on Zoom.
Can you guys see the slide share? I just want to make sure they can see your email address on there. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the slide. Did I share it right? Yep.
dhart@securityhomemortgage.com. Okay. So they can see this.
They see this screen. Okay. Yep.
All right. Okay, so you guys, most of you already have these because I've left them here for probably a year now. The loan matrix guidelines, and so you probably already have a lot of the basic information, but we're going to dive deep today. So again, like Nathan said, you have the ability to answer more questions, be a more knowledgeable agent for your buyers. Of course, you're always welcome to have any of your buyers call us with those questions anytime. But at least you're able to have some of the basics yourself. So at the elite team at Security Home Mortgage, I know probably 90% of you have heard my spiel a dozen times here, but we have in-house everything. And the reason that sets us apart is I actually was at a brokerage before, and there's 45 different lenders and they all have different underwriters and they all have different overlays. And my very first loan there, they changed the underwriter 4 different times, which was hard and confusing, and it almost made everything fall through. Has anyone ever had that experience?
No.
Kitty, yes. No, good for you. So it happens more often than not in that type of situation because you can't control who the underwriter is. You don't know who they are. When we have in-house underwriting, we can walk down the hall and talk to them. And we can ask them questions anytime. So I wouldn't work anywhere else 4 times.
No, we have 4.
Oh, 4. Yeah, 4 underwriters. And we do ask them 4 questions sometimes. And I had a deal that was a little rough because she changed something mid-deal, like towards the end. And one of my underwriters worked till 10 o'clock at night on that file for me, and you're just not going to get that with some stranger, right? So I love where I work. I love the team environment. We also, a lot of you know, we have our 10-day close process. So this includes a pre-underwriting. So if you have any tricky buyers with some self-employment income and they've got 5 different businesses going and or some tricky life situations, maybe they just went through a divorce. Those are things that, after you're under contract and you go into underwriting, sometimes they cause some problems. Sometimes it kills the deal. So what we do for our buyers in that situation is we will go ahead and underwrite them ahead of time. We give you a Security Plus certification to put on top of your pre-approval letter with your offer, where we guarantee to close them in 10 business days or less. So when you give that to your listing agent, it gives you a strong competitive advantage, and it also guarantees that none of that's what's going to come up in the underwriting process, because that's been done. So at that point in time, it's subject only to the title and the appraisal report. Also, as you guys have noticed, we love education. I love to teach, and so we have a wide variety of CE classes. We have about 26 different classes now. We just added a whole bunch of them past couple of months. And so we have a brand new one every 2 weeks on Zoom, Friday mornings. I think most of you are getting my Tuesday rate emails. And so the registration every 2 weeks is on that, and the quarterly list for all the upcoming CE classes was on the last one. If you did not get that email, let me know. But then also I come here at least once a month. In September, I'm coming here twice. So that'll be fun. The next one is on the 21st. I'm co-teaching with James Roberts, our branch manager. And he is with the first it's a 2-hour core CE. We're going to be teaching the advertising laws, do's and don'ts, and then the 10 laws of success, which is super fun. And then the other thing coming up, mandatory residential that you guys have to have every 2 years. That is going to be Thursday on Zoom. So if you need the registration link again for that, if you know any other agents who need that, because if you wait until the last minute, you're going to be paying $100 online somewhere, but we always offer those for free. So on Thursday, I'm doing the mandatory residential 3-hour core. And then in October, we're doing a big event again at the Miller campus. This is going to be millionaire mindset for real estate agents / also CE. So it's our success seminar. It's got mindset, tools, coaching, training, the actual marketing systems. So it's a 3-hour event. It's going to be fun. We're going to have music and games, and you're also going to get CE for that too. So that's going to be October 20th with these guys, and you know they know how to put on a good event. Okay, now to the fun stuff. Nathan already kind of did what I like to start by asking some questions too. What loan programs are you familiar with? So a lot of you guys already answered these, and let me know if anyone pops on chat that I need to answer. But these are the ones we have in-house, and these are your standard loan products you're going to find anywhere. This is what you're mostly going to be dealing with. Is the conventional, as you know, is a minimum of 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer, and who knows how much is the minimum percent down without cheating if you're not a first-time home buyer. If you're a first-time home buyer on conventional, the minimum is 3, but if you're not a first-time home buyer, what is the minimum down for conventional? 5. There we go. And what are the stipulations for being a first-time home buyer? Is it only your very first home ever? What is it?
I don't know the stipulation, but I know you can do it later.
Within 3 years?
3 years. You
Sorry,
always,
I don't-
you
try
know,
not-
every time. Nice. Okay, that's right. 3 years. If they have not owned a home for 3 years, they are then considered a first-time home buyer again and are eligible for that 3% down. The minimum down for FHA is, let's get someone in the back, Eric.
3.5.
3.5, thank you. What about VA? 0. What about USDA? 0 also, which is why we love these programs right now, right? And then Utah Housing, obviously 0. That's the one that people will go to when they don't qualify for one of the others. They haven't been able to save up. Now, what does 0 down actually means 0 out of pocket? No, I'm so glad you know that. Sometimes there's a kind of a disillusion there with home buyers that we do have to explain. 0 down payment does not mean no closing costs. There is a cost to do the loan, and there is a minimal requirement for out of pocket on that. So on Utah Housing, it is actually 2 separate loans. The first loan is going to be covering 97% of the loan. And then the Utah Housing loan is a separate loan. It covers up to 6% of the purchase price. So that 3% will go towards that down payment. And then the rest of it, that other 3%, will go towards the closing costs, but they usually still have to come up with at least around $3,000. It does vary a little bit. But of course, lenders want to see that there's a little bit of skin in the game, right? There's just too much risk if there's absolutely nothing down. And then of course, there are some non-QM products. Does anybody know what non-QM stands for?
Non-qualifying.
Good job.
She's been in the industry a long time too. We actually just posted Jill together, and Kitty was so sweet. She invited me to go to the possession when they got the keys and walked through. And the sweet little boy was like, I love this house. Like I
Got sweet rooms.
Yeah, they did. They spread it all over them. Thank you. That was so sweet of you to invite me to that. But non-QM, yeah, non-qualified mortgage. So these, the ones we just covered are under the qualified mortgage guidelines. They're backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Non-QM are going to be from some different private investors, and they're going to cover things like no doc loans, bank statement loans, ITIN loans, investor cash flow loans. So we don't, we can do those. So that's also the beauty of where I'm at being a correspondent. We have in-house everything for the main products, but we can broker out the non-QM also. So we do also all of those, and we can chat about those later. If you know any people who are interested in those, it's not in-house though. So I don't know the underwriter. They are a lot harder. They do take longer. And so it is a matter of having a conversation with your home buyer if they're interested in that product or they need to go that route, understanding it is going to take longer. It is going to be a bumpier road, but we can do those, and we've done those. One of my first loans actually was an I-10 loan, and it was actually really fun to be able to do that. There it is.
It's temperamental.
Just, yeah.
No, I think I just have to, it goes to sleep sometimes.
There it is.
There, we're back.
There we go.
Okay.
Did you guys have any questions about those different loan products so far? All right. Okay, so who knows the difference between a primary residence or a second home? Does it mean the second time you buy a home?
No.
No. So primary residence is where you are living. A second home would be if you're buying and it's like a vacation home. And the qualifying factor is that you need to be staying there at least 14 days out of the year. So this is a very popular option for Airbnb because investment properties are going to have the highest interest rates and the highest percentage needed for a down payment. So second homes is going to be right in between that. Primary residence, as we just talked about, you know, all the minimum downs, they're on your loan matrix. Second home is going to be 10% minimum down and only a slightly higher interest rate. And then investment properties are going to be a minimum of 15% down, but you're going to have a hit on your interest rate if you do the 15. It's going to be much better at 20 and better still at 25. So if people are doing like an Airbnb, you can do that under second home financing. Just as long as you pick somewhere you're going to want to stay 14 days out of the year. And it usually has to be at least 50 to 100 miles away from your primary residence. There's no exact mileage on there that's regulated on that, but it does have to make sense. They don't want you buying a second home and then just renting it out to your kids or something. That's actually considered an investment property. And so your underwriter is going to be looking at that carefully to make sure that that makes sense so that why you're getting that better deal there.
Well,
Yeah. 50 to 100 miles.
Okay.
Anything over that, they're like, yeah, that's a
It
second
just has to
home.
make sense.
It just, so if it's under that is where they're going to be looking at that,
Right.
a little more closely.
So what would be required proof that you actually stayed there 14 days?
Well,
Does it ever come up?
if you get audited, it comes up.
And you would
Other than
show
that-
that how.
Other than that, I mean, you could show receipts that you were there, like gas. I mean, if you drove there, you rented a car, you bought food there. If you're staying there for 14 days, there's going to be receipts or things like that to show that.
Keep records.
Keep records.
Documents. Yeah.
This is how we do it. But normally it doesn't come up. So yeah, people probably do try to get away with that, but I don't want to try to get away with mortgage fraud.
Story about that, but it has to make sense. And so real fast, there was a couple that they lived down by BYU, but they're huge youth fans, right? And they go to every sporting event up there. So they thought they were in our older age. It'd be nice if we just had a place that was close to all the sporting events at U of U campus. Would have to sit in traffic, driving back, right? That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
But to an underwriter, what does the little house right by campus look like? It looks like an investment, right? So there was no way that we can push that one through. Now, what about Park City? That's a resort town,
Yeah.
right? Does that make more sense? So even though it made perfect sense to that couple, it just didn't fly with the underwriters. Let's just quick short.
Thank you. Yeah.
Could my IQ records be used for documentation as well?
Mhm. Yeah, so that's for those three. Condos versus townhomes, who knows the difference?
Size,
Size, sometimes, not always.
not in this state.
What's the difference between a condo and a townhome?
Condo, single floor.
Sometimes.
No, it depends on how it's filed, because you can have townhomes that are in a condo community. As opposed to being a single family residence
That's
or
right.
multifamily residence. Because the building itself is multifamily, but the unit itself is single family. So it
Correct.
all depends on how it's filed.
How it's filed, how it's listed, the legal description is what we're looking for. The non-legal description is usually condos own the airspace and townhomes own the land. And sometimes a little bit more. Okay, who knows the difference between manufactured, modular, and mobile?
Don't do any of them.
Thank you, this is why we work together.
Well, there's HUD tags, there's whether the wheels are attached or not, there's whether it's on a foundation or not. I'm not clear on all the definitions,
It
but I
also
know
depends
some
if
about.
you're on the dirt.
You own
And
your-
with the mobile, you don't.
That's right. So manufactured and modular, if they're on a permanent foundation and they own the land, it's real property, and residential lenders can fund those. Mobile homes, you cannot. They are like personal property. They have like a license plate.
Shall.
Yeah, so we can't fund those. You have to get a loan like you would on an automobile. And then manufactured and modular. So modular is going to get better financing because it's built to higher standards. It's built on site. And then it also has to be, they have to be built after 1976. The funnest one ever, mortgage insurance. We all love mortgage insurance. So I want to know what you guys tell your buyers when they say, oh yeah, I want to buy, but I don't have 20% down and I don't want to pay PMI. So I'm just going to wait and save up. What is your answer, Sydney?
Well, we hear that a lot. Well, I feel like at this point you have to ask questions and find out that first time home buyer. Find out the 3-year thing too, because that changes their perception on their money down. But the PMI too, there's ways to get that lifted and the different loan programs. But I essentially just say, I'm not the expert. I can tell you a little bit, but let me refer you to someone that is an expert.
I like that answer.
It's also good to talk about the cost of waiting
The cost of waiting. What is the cost of waiting?
substantial.
It is substantial.
Well, just kind of showing them what the PMI might be versus appreciation, even in the slower market, it's slowed down, so they're still gonna lose by the value of the home by the time they save. And so it's just kind of like make decisions based on what you know now, not this projected what if.
But not only
Yeah.
projected what if, but would you say maybe a lack of financial education
Mhm.
on the cost of waiting? Because how many were here at my, part of Martin's thing where I went over the investment quadrant? I know Kitty was. There's 4 different ways to make money on real estate. Now, we would pull out the cash flow if you're buying yourself, but there's still 3 other ways. And so if they're waiting to buy because they want to save up their down payment, PMI can be as little as $50 a month if you've got good qualifying factors. It can, if you've got really low credit score and not so great qualifying factors, it can be as high as 300. That is substantial. But it's always nice to have them have that conversation with you, with your lender, and decide, because how much interest is rent?
100%.
Okay, so what are they actually losing when they're waiting to save up to not have their PMI, right? They're losing the principal reduction, they're losing the appreciation, and then they're losing the tax write-ups, or what we refer to as depreciation also. So they're losing a lot more than they realize. And as their financial team, their real estate agents, their lender, and perhaps another financial advisor like my friend Martin Herbert, we are there to educate them. It's not pushy, it's not salesy to have those conversations with them. It's hurtful not to. Because the lack of education, if you're afraid to present those topics and educate them because you don't want to come across as pushy, then they're missing. So it is our job, our duty, and our pleasure to be able to educate them, right? One of the easiest ways I find to have that conversation, if someone is resistant due to lack of education, not if there's real reasons to wait. There are valid reasons to wait, but if you can tell it's due to lack of education and you don't feel you have that kind of rapport to have that conversation because they're resistant, because they knew you when you were 2 and they used to babysit you and change your diapers or whatever it is, we can set up a home buyer class or an investor class and then have your lender be the bad guy that turns into the good guy, right? Good cop, bad cop. You can't just come to this class. It's an hour, you're doing me a favor, just come and find out all of these ins and outs. And then we have a cost of waiting chart that shows in black and white what they're missing out on. And suddenly those lights start to turn on and then they're asking you the questions. And then they're thanking you for not missing out. So on VA, USDA, and FHA, those are all upfront fees. They are for USDA and FHA, they are for the life of the loan. The only difference is if you put 10% down on an FHA instead of 3.5, it will drop off at 11 years. I don't know how they came up with that number. Seems random.
Yeah.
But usually people don't. They just put the 3.5% down because of the reasons that they're doing an FHA. Usually they don't have more than that. And so that mortgage insurance will be for the life of the loan on those. But if they have a lower credit score, they will probably almost always have a better interest rate on the FHA. So we'll run it both ways. If they're in that, if they're 700 and above, they're almost always going to be better off conventional. If they're around 680, we will run the file both ways and give them both options. Show them the PMI, show them the interest rate, the break-even point on the choices. We're all about education. VA doesn't have it monthly, it just has the upfront. And then conventional does have technically 2 options. Most usually people do pay it monthly, it's automatic and it's easy. But if their debt to income ratio is really tight and that monthly PMI is going to push them right up against that edge or maybe even over it, there is an option to do what's called a buyer buyout and pay it all up front. It's usually somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000 for like a $500,000 mortgage. There's a lot of calculations that go into that, so I'm not going to go over that right now, but that is an option. That's why we're saying, have the people have the conversation with the lender, give them all of those options. They think, oh, I have to have 20% down, or they think their DTI is too high, but we have a lot of workarounds and we want to close that deal as bad as you do. So have them have the conversation with your lender.
We'll talk about the upfront funding fee for VA. You guys know what the upfront funding fee is?
For VA.
Take a guess.
It's on your chart, but don't look.
It's 2.3%. Is that a lot? I mean, they're not putting any down payment, right? But then for first time use, but for subsequent use, it can go all the way to 3.6%.
However,
Ow.
that is waived if you have a
Yeah.
10% disability.
Yeah,
10% or
10%
higher.
10% or
disability or
higher.
Okay.
And we do call in and get a letter from the VA on that.
isn't it interesting they give you a rating, like percentage of what your disability is?
Oh, yeah, mine
Not
definitely-
not even a half.
mine 100%.
Yeah, we're helping a guy right now with 20%, so, yeah, we appreciate your sacrifice, so they deserve that.
Absolutely,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your team does, but I do a $500 appraisal. Okay, so the FHA and USDA, like I said, since the older ones used to drop off after 5 years, they don't anymore. So usually what people will do is once they hit that 20% mark, they'll just refinance into conventional. At 80% on conventional, you can actually call the lender and ask it to be removed. If you do not do that, at the 78%, it will just automatically come off. Unless it's an investment property or multi-unit, it can stay on a little bit longer. So the guidelines can change just a little bit on that. But if you haven't paid it down to 80%, so this is what you guys were dealing with this a lot in the last 2 years. Appreciation was accelerated the last 2 years. You can have it dropped off sooner. It does take 24 months though still. They do have to be making payments for 24 months. But then you can have, you guys can do a CMA for them and see if their value is risen to that point. And then if you think it has, they can pay for an appraisal, submit that. And if it is at that 80%, they can have it dropped sooner than just waiting to do the principal reduction method.
And that,
Has anyone done that? I know you guys were doing some videos about that a couple months ago. Did you have anyone that actually did that?
I didn't.
so the 24 months is only on a investment property?
No, conventional as well. Primary
So-
residence. So they have to, in order to get it dropped off sooner, because it's going to take longer than that if it's just through principal reduction and they only put 3% down. But if there's enough appreciation in 2 years, they can pay for an appraisal and have it dropped.
So I bought a property and I did that in a year and like 3 months.
There are some that, sometimes we can do it in 12 months.
Okay.
The standard's 24.
Standard, 24.
But you can try to have it done in 12 months. It's not a guaranteed. And then sometimes people are worried about losing their appraisal fee.
Right.
But we can look at that. It can be done as soon as 12 months, but it's typically 24. I'm glad you were able to do that. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it was great. Awesome.
What are the stipulations for the 12 versus the 24?
I'd have to talk to an underwriter about that to get the details on that.
Okay.
What was yours? Did they tell you?
I just had to pay for the appraisal. They came out, appraised it. And then,
If they have, I guess
It's a
probably
good-
credit scores into like all the qualifying factors, how much of a down payment, the credit scores between all co-borrowers, all the things they're looking at. So if they're at like a 640 and you're at the 12-month mark, that's probably a no. But if you're above 700, that's probably a yes.
that would make sense too. Looking at all the factors,
Yeah.
okay.
Could it be lender
We'll do it.
specific too? It's like some do it, some say hard no. They just wait to 24.
Could be, yeah.
What do they-
Yeah, that's where when you don't know your
We'll just
underwriter,
check.
you don't,
Yeah,
so you do
check
need
with the one.
to check. Yep.
With penny there. I don't like it.
Seller concessions. Can I get a hallelujah that these are back? The last time I taught this specific CE class in March, that's not happening yet. So this is nice. We have a lot of options for seller concessions. It's up to 6% of the purchase price for the government loans, the FHA, VA, and USDA, and up to 3% for conventional owner occupied, 6% if 10% or more is put down, 2% on the investment properties. Now here's the stipulations. It can only go towards closing costs and prepayments, not the down payment. And then the most popular thing right now is the 2-to-1 buy down. Who came to my class on that? You got the recording and the calculator. Okay. I do have a 30-minute overview on what the 2-to-1 buy down is, and it includes a calculator so that you can actually plug in the numbers and see if it's worth it. So the buyer cannot pay for that. It has to be a seller and or agent contribution. So, and it cannot exceed these guidelines. So the 6% on the government loans. We can't really have it happen on investment properties because the cost is usually 2.19 and you can't go above 2% contributions. So the agent can't even make up the difference because it's combined contributions. So you can't even have the seller do 2% and you do the 0.19 because it's a max out of 2%. So we haven't really seen the 2-to-1 buy down work on investment properties, but for everything else, it's really nice. And if you want the calculator, what? Who's that?
Somebody's just.
Totally good chime in.
If you guys want the calculator, I will send you that and I will show you how to use it, or I can always just do it for you. But it actually has both side by side. So it has the 2-to-1 buy down, the cost, and how much, like that break even point. And then if they sell or refi within 2 years, that's actually refundable. And then on the other side, we'll have the traditional buy down calculator. So when we get a contract in and someone's looking at the interest rates for the day, we'll give them a minimum of 5 quotes. What the rates are, we talk to them about how long they plan on staying there, what it costs to buy the interest rates down, and how long that break even point is. So it's usually, you want to be staying there at least 4 years usually to make that worth it. And so we put both calculators side by side so they can decide which one is a better option.
I have a question on that, Debbie. Yeah. That's the biggest thing I've heard when this gets brought up is like, well, what if we just refi it immediately? You kind of touched over it, but you said it's
only on the 2-to-1 buy down. That one is refundable within 2 years. If you buy down, they buy down their own rate, it's not. But why would you? Why would you refi if you bought down your rate? I guess if they dropped back down to the 2, but who sees that happening? Probably not. This is just the overview of what we're going to be covering. Oh, by the way, they do allow us 2 10-minute breaks for these 2-hour classes, or we can just push through and get through in 1 hour and 40. Who's for option 2? I didn't even ask about option 1.
We've got one coming from Edgehomes, is it?
Yes. Janine Ottley is amazing. So, and Edge, we like him. It's just their lender friendly. They are very be real about that. Most builders are not. So, okay, so the names, you know what, we can skip this slide because we're going to go over all of them in detail. So, okay, the names on the purchase contract. So if you know what they put on their application or what they want on title, it's really nice to have that match, or you might need to do an addendum later, not necessarily to match the application, because I can always go in before we lock it and send it in and I can change it to match what you wrote. But it is going to, all of that's going to need to match what they're writing on title at the end. So just make sure you're taking care of that up front, as most of you probably already do. Being on the loan versus being on title. So if you're on the loan, do you have to be on title? Yes. If you're on title, do you have to be on the loan? No, that is correct. So sometimes when we have co-borrowers, specifically maybe like a husband and a wife, and he works and she doesn't, if they both have good credit, it helps to have her on the loan. Even though lenders always have to use the lowest middle score of all co-borrowers, it's a qualifying factor, a positive qualifying factor to have multiple good credit scores. But if she doesn't have an income, or he, we're in, you know, in the 21st century, one of them doesn't have an income and they have a lower credit score, it's going to hurt the loan. So we will then remove them, but they can still be on the title. So that's something we're looking at. We're having all of these conversations. He calls us consultants. I sometimes say financial forensic officer. So many details that go into all of this. It's just getting this general overview of everything they could qualify for, all the different options, and what their long-term and short-term goals are, and putting that all together on a plan for them. Here's your options. What do you want to do? And then addendum again. So if the name is different than from what's on the application, they used to require addendums. We don't, our underwriters don't anymore, but some others might. So just consider that you might have to turn an addendum in addressing the name. making sure it matches what was on the application. The address, oh, we just had this happen, it almost delayed closing. The address needs to match what is on the United States Postal Service website. Sometimes this is a challenge with new builds, but even the one I just did out in Weber County, it showed up as Box Elder on the purchase contract, but it actually was Weber County on the other. So anyway, so we had to do some things to fix that. So it's just something to be aware of. Your lender will and should fix that. But if you guys just address that right up front, if you want to look it up, it just makes our job easier. So that's just something to think about when you're writing that. It's double checking that the address matches, or we're going to need an addendum to fix it. Lead-based disclosures, obviously it's been a requirement. Everybody knows about these, right? Okay. Who knows what section 1.2 is without reading? Off the top of your head, what is section 1.2? The personal items included. So the reason why your lender will always know what section 1.2 is because most underwriters like to see that there's some writing on there that says at no additional value to the price of the home, just so there's nothing to go to court about or negotiate later. Just say we included this and then have them come back later and say, but that was worth $5,000. Where's that money? We just, underwriters like to see that in section 1.2. So we're always looking for that.
Well, also because they don't want to loan money.
Exactly.
That's part of their.
Yes, thank you.
Even on like the original offer, not just like an addendum, if you add something later on. Like you always just want to see that if there's any included items whatsoever.
They always want to see that language that is at no additional value.
Okay. Can you put that just in section 1.2, say the washer and dryer are left at no additional value, rather than just washer and dryer, so you don't have to do an addendum?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is you can put it in there right up front, so we don't have to ask for an addendum. And we have to-
There's lines on there.
Yeah.
For other, or whatever. So you can write.
Can I give them a ninja strategy real fast?
Do it.
Regarding, okay, it's true story, and I learned this from a really smart real estate investor. But you're representing buyers, right? So what you want to do is make sure that they're protected. When they go through and they're adding these personal things on there, well, you want to make sure that you're specific. See, my buddy James, he bought this house and he said, okay, refrigerator included. What they didn't know he did is while he was looking at it, he wrote down the serial number of that refrigerator. Why was that important? Because he always goes through his walkthroughs about an hour before closing, just to see if anything changed, right? Because you know, glued or screwed, you know the whole rules, right? Well, they didn't know about this refrigerator. So he walks in there, he sees an avocado green refrigerator. So he shows up to closing and he said, we got a problem. It says right here, refrigerator included. Yeah, there's a refrigerator in there. Yeah, but is it serial number? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, we got a problem, don't we? You're two guys in a truck are halfway to Texas. And guess what? They got my refrigerator. So we can either knock off $4,000 off the purchase price, or we can call them up right now, have them come back and return my refrigerator. Guess what they did? They shaved $4,000 off.
Right there.
Isn't that awesome? Because we added a little number to it. Guys, it's a cool ninja strategy. Keep that in mind when you're going through.
I love it.
Anyone had that problem where you showed up?
Serial number.
You have that?
I used to be property
Yeah.
management. We take down
Right.
the operating serial number all the time.
You do.
Well, because tenants will do that too.
Tenants will take.
Move out and leave it different.
Oh, they take a refrigerator, they learn nice refrigerator and replace it with something cheaper.
It's bulletproof shit.
Yikes. And we saw one too where the real estate agent had written sheds on there, but there was 3. And so they tried to take one of them and they had to kind of have some issues around that. So being as specific as possible.
Pictures can help.
Yeah.
Yeah, pictures, that's awesome. Yeah, voice of wisdom here. FHA and VA addendums, you guys know about these, right? They're a must. If you're going FHA or VA, you must include that. It's not on the standard purchase contract. USD VA doesn't require that, nor does conventional. If you're going Utah housing, on first home again, or score programs, you're going to need to specify that because those are all a little bit different. And then, as you know, the FHA in their addendum, they do protect against the earnest money going hard. And so sometimes that can be a challenging factor. It certainly was for any of my buyers who were FHA approved, getting their office accepted last year, but this year it's a different market. And so they're not having as much issues with that. Okay, repair escrows. There's quite the stipulations on these. They're not accepted anymore except under 2 circumstances. Who knows what those are? Who even knows what repair escrows are? Kitty?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. So what is it? A repair escrow?
Well, it's
Oh,
when,
Rachel.
when a repair is happening after closing, then the title company and lender holds money in escrow to pay for that repair.
Yeah, and do you know the 2 stipulations that allow for this?
I think it has to be a licensed contractor doing the repair.
That's true, but that wasn't one of them.
Otherwise,
There's only 2 reasons that we'll allow this to happen. Otherwise, it has to be done before closing. Anyone else have a guess the 2 reasons why they will allow this to happen later rather than before closing? Weather. So if they need to replace the roof and there's a blizzard outside and they can't, they're not going to delay the whole deal, right? Because there's often usually a domino effect, right? This one's by this one and the next one on the next one. So weather is an acceptable delay that will include a repair escrow. And the other one, this has been happening a lot since COVID because things, production slowed down for supplies. So delayed reception of the supplies. That is something that is out of their hands. I almost had to deal with that once because we couldn't get the window, but we did get it and we did close in time. So otherwise we would actually, it's so much easier if we avoid this by just doing what you said, just giving the seller concession, just saying, $3,500 and don't even specify what it's for. Because if you say it's for carpet, if you say it's for this or that, then the underwriter is going to need to verify that that specific repair has been done. If you just give them money, they don't have to deal with that. So that's a lot easier and to deal with that way if you can. Negotiating on those repairs, I just gave you the roof and the example is the same. If any of repairs are listed in the contract or the appraisal prior to closing or funding, then you're going to have to provide proof that they have been satisfactorily completed. This is not true for the inspection. We do not require inspections. I recommend them, but we don't require them. So whatever comes up in an inspection, please don't put the negotiations in the contract because then we are involved. And then the underwriter is involved and then you have to meet the stipulation that it's been repaired. You can handle it several different ways. You can just handle it with a contract that's outside of the purchase contract, or you can just do the money, like $4,000, $3,500, whatever it is. Those are the easiest ways to handle it. However, if it does come back in the appraisal, we are going to have that taken care of before we close. And then I already did this one. Making sure the signatures match. We already did that too. Oh, okay. When you send the purchase contract over, we need all of those addendums. And so sometimes, we're looking where we've got 1, 2, 3, and 5. And there's page 4. We have to have all of these things. And so don't forget to give us all of the pages, all of the addendums, specifically anything that covers the deadlines, the purchase price, closing costs, like we talked about, the personal items being at no additional value. Please make sure we have all of those. And if any addendums are signed afterwards, please make sure we get them as soon as possible so we're not delaying anything, because as you know, those deadlines come up and it's a lot of pressure there. The seller's name. So on this one, has anyone ever done one where the seller is an LLC or some other business? So how did you have to handle that in the purchase contract?
In the purchase contract, I just know the company name.
Just the company name?
Yeah.
Usually underwriters want to see also the name of the person who's responsible for that company. So you didn't have any problem on that one?
No, I didn't.
Okay, sometimes I've seen a lot of them require that. So that's something to keep in mind. And then, of course, if it goes through underwriting and you didn't have that and you just add them later.
So you're saying that they like to see it actually, the name on
Actually,
it.
the name of the person who's responsible.
Some of them accept just the organization. Don't you?
Some of
So
them.
that it is-
Yeah, so it depends on your underwriter. But that's something to be aware of. Some of them will require that. So it's something you can just take care of up front, or you can wait and see if you need that addendum. Earnest money. So we do need that deposited right away. We need to show the proof that the money's come from their account, huh? Otherwise, we have some issues. Yeah, those are requirements. So, so we get that transaction summary that shows the money has left their account. Earnest money, according to Utah law, is deposited at the title company of the buyer's choice. So if they don't already have someone that they know, like, and trust, they usually use your recommendation. So have a title company that you like and that you trust and that is really good with documents and making sure the earnest money is taken care of. And then if you're new, like you are, if you don't have someone, we have referrals for you as well. Let's see, additional earnest money. So make sure that's on the addendum as well. So I had one that they had to renegotiate because the buyer did not get her stuff done in time. And they wanted an extension, and this was when everything was really hot. And so they asked for additional earnest money for that extension. And so then we had to go through all of the same things with that. Whenever you have in your hand the earnest money, cash, check, or money order, state law and administrative rules require you to sign for the receipt of that. And of course, you're always sending that to your lender as well, that receipt. In addition, if you deposit that cash, check, or money order with the title company, make sure you receive that deposit receipt from that title company and send it to your lender.
Copy of the check.
You did finally get that? Well, we closed without it, so.
Debbie, since we're like halfway through, I
You
think it's
did
time
the
to
right
come
time.
up with a word for
Oh.
our friends on
Thank
Zoom.
you.
What should we pick?
FHA.
FHA, that's your first word. Write it down, guys. FHA.
I do forget to do that when I'm teaching live. Thank you for reminding
all right.
me. I know we've started doing a lot of these hybrid ones, so thank you. All right, so who here has done an FHA deal? You've done one? They're fun, huh? There's more things to think about. You've done one too. So what came up with that?
Things not up to par on the house,
Exactly.
paint,
Paint chips.
railings,
Yep.
mold,
Mold,
heating.
crack
Cracks.
foundation, cracks, yep. I had one that the ceiling in one room, in one corner was 7 inches lower. And so the FHA appraiser did not like that. We did battle that and we did win actually, but they're pickier, they're harder. So any bare wood outside is not going to pass those. Like you said, cracked foundations or other cracks, paint chips, they really don't like those. Anything that needs to be functional in the house, kitchen stuff, bathroom stuff, handrails, yeah. So they're anything that really needs to be considered functional in the house, FHA is going to be picky on. Conventional, not as much. Safe.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
A VA also requires a termite inspection. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Just the VA.
Yeah, we bought our first house in Pleasant Grove and we actually found termites. So I'm glad we
You
did the
did?
inspection. Yeah, isn't that weird? It's rare in Utah, but they're here.
Yeah.
So they require it. So it's something to keep in mind.
So there's a list of stuff here that they check too. Toilets flushing, faucets working, furnaces, air conditioners, water heaters, all the fun and functional things. which is nice to make sure they're working anyway. Issues with the home. If they're going Utah housing, it's even pickier. We can't have renters at all in that or boarders. So there's like a second meter that kind of proves it's a legal duplex, you can't list renters on the MLS listing. And the appraiser, when he goes in, if he notes that there's other people living in the basement, these things are not going to fly with Utah housing at all. And then HOA fees. So the monthly fee is not the only thing that you have to consider. Anyone know what a transfer fee is or what it's for?
It's when it's transferring from the seller to the buyer.
And what is it for? What does it cover?
That I really don't know. I just know that they can be really expensive.
They can, as you see here, up to $1,500 we've seen. Do you know what they're for?
Literally just looking the names. I don't know.
Like, that's what they
Just the cash offer, yes, each other.
That's exactly it. There, in the past, HOAs sometimes had trouble having the funding for fixing up the parking lot around the swimming pool or the roofing issues. It's a lot of money sometimes. And so those transfer fees actually just are extra padding there so that the property values do not go down. Because I actually was looking at my this one couple was looking at that I had done a pre-approval for a condo in Provo, but their HOA had gone bankrupt, so we couldn't fund it. So they had to keep looking. So that does happen if they don't have enough in there that's not managed well. So that's why condos sometimes are harder to lend on. We have to have a condo search that shows those funds are in there and several other things. So that's actually what the transfer fees are for. Because does it cost $1,500 to do one document, changing name and ownership? Of course not. But they are padding that account so that they have things to take care of so that the property values stay.
That's why it's important when you're asking for HOA dollars to get budgets, to get proposals for next year's budget. It shows reserves and stuff like that. Because I had a condo, the HOA wasn't bankrupt, but poorly managed. They didn't have the reserves necessary for the number of units that they had, and we couldn't get along.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, they'll be required. The lender will require all of those documents. But that's a good, I'm glad you brought up the details of that, because if you have a cash buyer, you should want them to question those things as well.
Right.
Mention someone, something.
Of course.
Appreciate you letting me jump in here, guys.
Love it.
Anyways, I get
Teaching.
passionate excited about this because I prefer the guy named Doug Clark. He was on that Flip Man on the TV, Spike TV. He taught me about these HOAs you gotta watch out for because they're considered a super lien. Did you know that? You ever heard of a super lien? You guys ever heard of tax liens, right? You know what a tax lien is, right? Who knows what a tax? Okay, real fast, just in a nutshell, if somebody doesn't pay their property tax, what happens? They get slapped with a penalty. It's called a lien, right? Well, that's the thing is it takes first position. And so I love investing in these things because the thing is there's a you know, the time when they can pay it off, kind of a grace period. The first one I ever bought, I bought for like $300 on $1 million piece of property in Arizona. They have a 3-year rescission, like or 3 years to make it pay it off, right? But I'm making 16%. That's the penalty. So the only way to get that off their property is to pay back the amount of back taxes owed plus 16% over the amount of time that I've held that. So it's a great investment thing. Worst case scenario for them, if they don't pay it off in time, guess what I get to do? For the cost of maybe hiring an attorney, I get to come in, I get to foreclose on that property. I just bought it for how much? $300. Isn't that amazing? But the same thing happens with these, and most people don't even know that about HOAs. If you don't pay your HOAs, guys, these liens on it, it's a super lien. There's a strategy I can teach you guys as investors how to come in and buy things with super liens, and they are on steroids, like tax liens on steroids. So stay tuned. We like to teach investors.
We do. We love doing this with classes.
Yeah, I want to learn that.
It's a pretty powerhouse. I got some cool stuff. If most people never heard of it, they're like kind of like hidden ninja strategy.
That's next week's training.
No, I got some fun stuff coming. I got even Doug to come on TV. I got him. He was on TV. You guys ever watch that show? They're from Utah.
Which
He
one?
was on Spike Television. What?
Mhm.
And then he's bought half of his property. It's crazy.
These guys just hosted an investor panel. You got some really good people on there.
It's
Okay, so who knows about the FHA anti-flip law? and how long it lasts without looking.
90 days. You
Yeah,
have to own it for 90 days. You can't just come in with it 30 days later.
nope. FHA will not fund if it's been 90 days. The number of days are calculated from the time, because I was dealing with this one, so I had to look it up. Calculated from the time the seller went on title to the purchase, when the purchase contract is signed, not the closing date. FHA will not work if the seller acquired this within the past 90 days. And then there is a period of 90 to 180 days that has some gray period in there too, which I also had to deal with. There's some regulations in there about having it not over 100% increase in value, which is what we dealt with because he had sold it to his own LLC for $1. And so we had a lot of fixing to do. We did close that deal, but please be aware of these things when you're putting, an offer in and you're looking at like how long that they have owned this. And if it's an FHA person, just understand that the 90-day rule there.
Did you guys catch that? It's the 90 days to be able to write an offer, not to close. You can't write an offer in 60 days thinking, oh, we're gonna close after the 90 days. The contract can't be dated within the 90 days.
So I've got an FHA loan on a house, I want to put it off on another house, it's gotta be past 90 days.
No, she's talking about from the sale of a property. Let's say you bought a property, you fix it up, put it back in the market. It only took you 6 weeks to do that.
Right.
An FHA buyer cannot put a contract on your flip until 90 days is
Until you own
expired.
it for 90
So the previous owner has owned it at least 90 days.
The seller may need to be prepared to prove how much they paid for the property and document the repairs. And that sometimes is clear up into that 90 and 180 day area. New construction, this is actually fun. So the warranties in the form, so the purchase contract is different than what you guys have on new construction. Every builder has their own forms. Who here has done new construction? A lot of you guys. All right. So, they all have their own forms. They all offer different versions of warranties. So you're on their team. It's part of your job there to make sure they're getting all of those things. What we need then is the final inspection from the appraisal completed. So there's two. We have the appraisal up front when they go when we get the contract, and then a final inspection at the end. And then with the COV, so that's the certificate of occupancy, meaning it's done, it's complete, they can move in. Okay, so how long does the USDA loan take? Anybody know? Anybody do one? Have you done one of those with somebody? Oh, did it take a little bit longer?
Yes.
Yeah. How much longer?
Yeah, it was close to 45 days.
45 days?
I think it was a while ago.
Oh, okay.
It was when it was new. She had, when it first came available within the first year, down in Saratoga. You were doing that.
They
What was
are
that?
still available in Saratoga.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, they are. Okay, they do take a little bit longer because they have to be underwritten twice. You do have to send that into the USDA as well, which takes anywhere from 3 to 7 additional days. So right now, we're closing most of our traditional loans in 18 to 21 days, although we can do our 10-day close if you give us someone ahead of time and we underwrite them like I talked about before. But if we just get them day of the contract, it's about 18 to 21 days right now, but we are going to recommend at least 30 days for the USDA. For condos, they also take longer as well because of the condo certs. And then due diligence, we request, please give us 7 days for that. You can do 14 days for financing and appraisal, but we like 21 because if anything weird comes up, it's so nice to have a little cushion to be able to take care of those things.
Y'all know, I'm agree.
Before, when it was super competitive and we were doing these tight deadlines, and we can do them, but it's so stressful on everybody when you're pushing up against that Fha deadline, and the Earnest one is going to go hard, and especially if you have someone that's not turning their things in right away. So we like to see 21 days on
The
them.
best rule of thumb on that, guys, is just call your lender before you write the offer.
So I
Before you do that. I'm sorry. Like, that's a big thing with me.
Yeah, when you're writing,
Don't put them in the fine.
call your lender first. They can let you know what the market's at right now, what we're seeing, what our underwriting, like right now, we're going in and out of underwriting in a half a day. So we're like, yeah, okay, 14 days, it's fine. But please, yeah, please call your lender and ask them, because they also, not just they know the current market and how full their current system is, but that particular buyer might have some tricky things that you're not aware of because we're not allowed to tell you. So we might say, no, we really need 21 days with this person, or 14 days is fine. So yeah, please call your lender. And same thing with the closing date as well. Like I said, we're doing 18 to 21 days on average right now. But again, if there's some factors in there, we might suggest 30 days. And it's not as competitive right now in most areas, but then some still are. So there's some pockets that are still super competitive out there. So we will have that conversation. And so protect your buyers by giving them enough time on the contract, by working with your whole team on that, working with your lender, working with everybody all together. Communication is awesome. So I need to update these numbers on the slide. You can't really get much for these prices anymore, but basically this is what you're looking at, what closing costs and prepaids are going to be, because there are some of them that are set, right? The underwriting fee, the processing fee, appraisal fee, they're going to be set whatever your purchase price is, whether it's 200,000 or 500,000. And so, but then there's some that are percentage based. So that's why you'll see here, the higher the loan amount, the less the percent is. So it's basically around 2% in the $500,000 range right now. Closing costs and prepaids are different. Closing costs cover the lender's fees, like I just mentioned, processing, underwriting, because it does cost time and money to do a loan for people. Title fees, and then the third party fees, appraisal and credit and inspections. And those are all part of the closing costs. And then prepaids are the first year of homeowners insurance, 2 to 4 months of taxes and insurance, and then the days of interest. So that's why it can seem cheaper to some people if they're really a numbers person and they really understand loans, they've bought several properties, they can see that it's cheaper to close towards the end of the month than the beginning by calculating all of that. And we'll always be talking to them and educating them on all of those fees and the interest. Oh yeah, no more good faith estimates, right? You've been around long enough to know what those were. They're very similar to the loan estimate, but there were some updated things. And so now there is only loan estimates. I still have some agents been around 20 years that ask me for the GFE. It's a now, yeah. It's okay, it's basically the same thing, but that's just what it's called now. Rates are like gas prices, right? And stock prices, they can change daily and even multiple times a day. And even the buy down rate can change. So I had one that we were going to lock in the morning, and I gave him his quote sheet of what it cost to buy down. And then later by the afternoon, the rates were still the same, but the buy down fees were different. So it is what it is. And so we're always talking, communicating, letting you know where things are at. You guys do get my Tuesday rates email, most of you, and you'll have what it's at currently. And it's not as volatile as it was a few months ago. But I'll always, that's going to be the most up to date and accurate. And then if there's a huge jump, I'll always send out another email saying there was a spike. So don't look at the Tuesday rates email, look at the Friday one now. We cannot lock the loan until the property is under contract. We can do them. The standard is 15. If we've got the 10-day close, we can do a 15-day lock because they're a little bit better price. The standard is usually 30, and 45 and 60 are still pretty common, especially on new builds because they're not often done when they say they're going to be done. So I will look at the contract date and the estimated completion, and I'll just go ahead and lock for the next one. We can lock longer than that, but there are some upfront costs and some higher rates on those. So we're going to be talking with your buyers and calculating those. Yes.
Can I say
Is
something
it
about
story
that?
time?
No, real fast, yes, story time. So the thing is, anything that's over a 90-day lock. 90-day lock, guys, it's gonna require 1% upfront. We can lock up to 12 months from now. Isn't that nice? Why is that important?
What if you're building right now, and you're worried about where rates are right now? Well, guess what? You might be pre-approved to buy that home right now, but you might not be in 6 months, 8 months, 12, depending on where things go. And like we just said, it's like gas prices, it's anyone's guess. So from a builder's standpoint, they love us, first of all, that we can lock it in today for up to 12 months. That might be something to keep in mind, okay, when it comes to locking, that's another great bonus. Just want to throw that in there for you
Yeah,
guys.
question on that. What's the fee like on it?
It's more expensive. For depending on how long, we can go up to 12 months though, but anything over 90 days requires 1%, and then that's
But
not,
it goes towards.
it goes towards the purchase, it's not like an extra fee.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but 1% helps to
But it is
secure that lot.
I had a buyer that it just priced herself out of the mortgage completely, and her mom took over everything because
Yeah,
the interest rates went up so high,
yeah,
and they didn't lock in at any point.
that's why this is important to know if somebody's not sleeping well, especially if you know builders out there, they love this. Because now they know they're gonna get paid, and the person knows what their interest rate is gonna be right now, 12 months from now. Does that make sense? So that's a cool option to throw out at people. This is a solution. And that's what you guys are, you're problem solvers. So just knowing this kind of stuff, it's like adding to your arsenal. Just pull this one out, you know what I'm saying? So these are all great. Isn't Debbie doing a great job? I think it's time for another word, guys.
Interest.
Interest. I'm writing these down.
Thank you. The next one I really like too, because lock extensions. I am working with someone right now who he's working with one of the agents that I work with on this side on his purchase in Utah, but he decided to do for sale by owner on his house in California. And that was not a wise decision.
Yeah.
So we are on our 5th lock extension right now. We used to not even allow more than 2, so. But that's the beauty of having everything in house, is that I can just call my guy and say, "Right, Travis." It just needs it to happen because we're at 5.2 and today it's 6.1, and they want to pay for this lock extension because that's a big difference. But they didn't have an agent, and so it was some investor, and so they were going to pay cash and got right up to the deadline and didn't send it, and didn't send it again, and didn't send it again. And they finally just re-listed it and got a new buyer. And this was literally yesterday at 4:50 p.m. and the lock expired at 5. My 4th lock on it. So we were like, we can't afford as a lender to keep paying for this for you.
Right.
We usually don't. If there's extenuating circumstances, we often cover the lock extension fee. But on this one, he's like, I'll pay you. It's 5.2 and I just got a guide. So we did it. We were able to do it just in time, and he was super happy about that. Okay, so lender's biggest irritation is clients that shop after we've already been locked in because we have deadlines, guys. So in order to get things done in time, there is a whole process going on behind the scenes. And I know we like to call you every Tuesday and every Friday a minimum, and then all the other mile markers in between and say, this is what's going on. But there's so many moving pieces to the loans. Anyone who's also been a lender, they have some real estate agents I know that have also been a lender. There's so many moving pieces. There's so much going on. We turn something into underwriting, but it's in a queue. You know, it's not automatically going to be looked at right away. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Those deadlines are tight. And so if someone starts shopping around, it makes everything really challenging. And that is what made one of my deals almost not go through, because she was doing that for a week and a half. And that was the one I talked about earlier, where they then had to negotiate an extension and pay extra earnest money to do so. So it's not a fun thing for anybody when that is happening.
And those calls at 4:58.
Yep.
Don't call your vendor right before.
Before. I mean, we're happy to do it. Happy that we will do it. We'll do, that's why we do what we do. We love it. We know we want nights, weekends, we take those calls when they're necessary, but there are things that prevent those kinds of things. And so having this education and knowing, it's just nice to know who you're dealing with. It's nice to know, you can't require them to use your preferred lender, but you can say, I know this person will get it closed. And ABC online lender may appear to have a lower rate. You don't know if they're including the buy down fee, which usually happens in those ads or whatever all of that stuff is. And we're happy to look at those quotes and explain them for you from other people, but you also don't know if they can get that done, right? It's like using one of those green sign $1,500 agents versus the service that you provide. You're right. It's a very different experience. And so having that talk with them ahead of time helps everybody have it be a better experience. Hey, good to see you. Yeah, okay, we can go to 12:40.
Yeah, should we throw a third word?
Let's do another word.
How about Gabby? Gabby, that's E-D-I-E. A-E-B-B-I-E. Yes.
Word number 3, you've got to have 4 of the 5 for the Zoom people to get credit online. And again, you're going to email those to dhart@securityhomemortgage.com. At the end of the class, we've got 20 more minutes. Is there any questions so far? We're doing good. Okay. The dates. I kind of already covered this. We recommend 7 days on each item. Again, we can push that, but please call us first. If you're in one of those pockets that's still hot and competitive, if we've done the 10-day close, you're definitely good to push those, but still please call us first. So we recommend 7 days for the seller disclosures, 14 days for due diligence, 21 for financing and appraisal, and then 30 days on closing, especially for USDA and condos and VA. And then, but if it's conventional and we've had the talk, they're really good. I mean, they've got great credit, salary income. We're good to push those if you want to. If we've done the 10-day close, we're good to push those if you want to. Just have that call with us. Okay. Having fun yet? We've got, less than 20 more minutes to go and you'll know everything you need to know about lending, and then you can answer all those questions. You don't even have to call it.
Right. No.
We do like the calls, actually. I love it. So they're basically given 5 key pieces of information. The loan program. So we're going to talk about all of those different programs with them, which ones they cost. So we have a list of questions like, have you served in the military? Do you want to live somewhere rural? So if not, we're not even going to look at those programs, right? We're going to talk about what the rates are at currently when they're getting pre-approved, and then where they're at when they get the contract. And then we're going to look at the difference there. So if there are any spikes or changes in rates between the pre-approval process and when they're shopping, we are going to have that call with them, because if they were maxed out on their DTI, on their pre-approval, and then rates that spiked, like what happened a few times over the last few months, they no longer qualify for that purchase price. So we have to then make those phone calls and redo all of those pre-approvals, and we're happy, willing, and able to do so. The monthly payment. So we're going to talk to them about, just because you can qualify for something doesn't mean you're comfortable doing so. So we will ask them what their goals are with their monthly payment. And then sometimes we do 2 pre-approvals. We'll do the max amount, we'll do what they want to do, and then we can talk about it in between as well. So because sometimes they want to keep it here, but then they see that dream house, and I'll pay anything for that dream house because that's where I want to raise my babies. So it happens. So we're willing to chat about that. We're willing to make last minute fine-tune adjustments on those as well. The amount of cash needed to close, again, so we're having that conversation with them about the down payment amount, which sometimes they hear this 3% or 5% and think that's all they need. So we're having the talk with them about closing costs. And if they don't have enough to cover both, but they want a larger purchase price, then we have to talk about rolling the closing costs into the loan. That's an option as well. It will increase the interest rate, but it gives them more purchasing power. So we'll be looking at what that does to their monthly payments and their DTI. Again, the financial forensics officer comes into play there. We're playing with all of those pieces for them to get them exactly what they want. Talking about the process. So if they haven't come to one of the home buyer classes that we do, then this is our time to talk to them about everything that they can expect. So the pre-approval and the loan process, and if they've done the security plus, the underwriting's been done, so a lot of the extra documentation's out of the way. But sometimes if they haven't been educated on underwriting and they just did the pre-approval part, I turned in my W-2 and my pay stubs and my bank statements, I'm good. And then they go into underwriting and they get all of these other conditions and it's stressful. So it's nice to just tell them ahead of time, there's going to be a lot more required of you. And the faster you can get those to us, the better. And, you know, just having that education with them about all of those expectations and that process from start to finish. So,
Debbie,
yeah.
you mentioned rolling costs into the loan.
mhm.
Are there restrictions on that, like how much and what costs you can roll into the loan?
Yeah, there is restrictions on that. So we can't roll, like I talked about with the Utah housing loan, you can't roll everything in there. There has to be some in the pocket. There has to be some skin in the game. So the different loan programs have different amounts that you can roll in. And then that is called premium pricing. So it does increase the interest rate, which does increase their monthly payment. And then they're paying that over the life of the loan. So we're going to talk to them about that. And if that's the best option. Sometimes they're looking at the overall cost and they need to decide if their monthly payment is what they want lowered or if they want to keep some reserves in their account for repairs. So we do
So
have
it's
to
the opposite of a rate buy down.
exactly. It's the opposite of a buy down, yeah, because they might want to keep some money in their account. They might not want to use every single penny that they've got. Because now suddenly, if they're especially first-time home buyers, now they're not used to having to do repairs, and they might worry about that. Of course, if you give them a home warranty or they buy one, that'll help tremendously with some of those fears and some of those costs. Yeah.
Fourth word. You guys ready to write this down? It's Nathan. Did you guess? Nathan. All right, got one more coming up.
I thought for sure you were going to use your last.
I was gonna say Jar Jar Binks. but That's a random.
That's it.
That's a good one.
Where are we at? Loan, okay, so after we get the initial documents, so we've done the pre-approval, we get the initial documents, they know who their insurance is, they know who title is, then the loan goes into processing, and the processor orders the appraisal, the title, and the VOEs, the verification of employment. And then once the processor has all of that, they can submit it to underwriting, which is our favorite part, right? And there's two things that happen after underwriting. What are those two things when it comes out of underwriting? Either A or B. What's A? What are those two things when you hear back from the underwriter?
Clear to close.
Clear to close. That's the one we like to hear.
Or
Or
conditional.
conditionally approved. Yeah, and it's still good. It's still good to hear that. Actually, there's three. Sorry, there's one more that we don't like to hear, so I almost didn't talk about it. Suspended. We don't like to see that. So the underwriter finds the problem and the file gets suspended, and then so then we have to clear up that problem. We have to find a workaround. We have to find a way to make that happen, or the deal is dead. So that's where, you know, we go into working overtime when that happens. Like that's back on the loan officer's lap there. When that happens, and it does sometimes, but not very often, because we're usually really thorough in that ahead of time. So if you get the clear to close, the closing department then prepares the CD, the closing disclosures. We love that. We send those to the borrower. I'll always like call them or text them and let them know to watch for that. So, and that they need to sign it the same day, and then we go over the numbers if they want to at that time. But I let them know we do have a 3-day period to where when it is signed to when we can actually close the loan. So those are really needed to be signed the same day as they receive them, so that we can close 3 days from then. And then, yeah, settlement happens no earlier than 3 business days after we've received the written proof that they have viewed and signed the CD. And then settlement. So as you know, we meet at the title company, we sign all the papers, and then the fun begins. So after title sends those papers over back to us, back to our closing department and funding department, if they sign before 10 a.m., we technically have 3 business days that we have to fund by the 4th according to the state regulations, but we'll fund the same day if they sign before 10 a.m. If they sign after 10 a.m., it depends. Sometimes it's the same day, but it's usually by the next business day. And then title records, and then Kitty gives them the keys, and they can take possession, and then the fun is had by everyone. They're all excited and running around, and that's where wording for all of us, that part right there. So next business day, like I mentioned, we get loan funds and records, and agent meets buyer to give the keys and welcome new home. So I always tell them that when they're signing the documents, that they don't get the keys right then. We have to fund, we have to record, and then they get the keys. And then we're also talking to them about, so we do some preventative measures when we're doing the loan application so that they don't get spam. When we're running the credit bureaus will sell their information that there's been a mortgage pull to other lenders, and then they get all kinds of spam calls, phone calls and emails and mail. So we change that. And so that doesn't happen. But we can't do it when it's recorded. So I always let them know when it's been recorded. Again, that's public information. People pay for that, and then they spam you, and it will come looking all official saying this is about your loan at Security Home Mortgage or wherever. I'm always telling them that this is not the end of our relationship. I'm still your lender for life. Call me, text me those pictures, text me the letter. I will read it with you. I will verify if that's from us or not. I always call them the day I get the same email that they get when it's time to set up their auto pay. We usually fund and service most of our loans, but occasionally we do sell some of them. So I will always call them and make sure they got that email. It's been sold here. Here's how you make your payments. Here's how you set them up. And just making sure that education piece continues so they continue to feel supported by your whole team. Okay, these are the things that can slow loans down.
Walk up smaller.
Like really walk
Oh,
You don't know that, see?
I do.
I'm the best.
Holds up a magnifying glass.
You know, I worked with a guy named George Ross. You guys ever watched the first seasons of The Apprentice? He was the old guy. Anyway, he taught me something about contracts. He says, what the big print on the front give it, the little print on the back take it away.
Love it. Oh. The number one thing, we kind of already covered it again, the client, if they start shopping around after they're under contract instead of working on the loan, that can slow things down and make it really stressful and hard to get that loan done. But the client isn't ready to buy, they're still finding the down payment and their financials. So that's why you want to make sure you have that phone call with your lender that they are actually pre-approved and not pre-qualified, because sometimes they'll still write you the letter and say pre-approved, but they were just pre-qualified. Anyone know what that means and what the difference is? Of course you do. What is it?
Pre-qualified, it just called and verbally given some basic criteria. My debts are this, my credit is this, and my income is this. And you said, well, okay, assuming all that's correct,
You can do that.
We'll give you a loan for that.
Assuming all that's correct.
Based on what
You can
you
do that.
said.
But based on what you said, and I have still seen them done, and I have worked with agents who have seen them done, and then everything falls apart, and that is not accurate. So do not be afraid to have those phone calls with your lender on that pre-approval. Say, have you verified their W-2s, their pay stubs, and their bank statements? Have you run this through AUS? You guys know what AUS is?
Automated underwriting system.
Automated underwriting. If you've done.
You
If
can.
you- There you go. If your lender has done all of that, it's a pretty solid pre-approval. Again, some stuff with complicated buyers can still come up in underwriting, which is why we will offer to do that ahead of time as well. But make sure, especially if you're a listing agent and you're calling on that offer, you call that lender and you say, is this an actual pre-approval? Have you done this and this and this? Make sure you do that. Client has issues on the credit that we have to deal with. So again, this is why we pull the credit ahead of time as part of the pre-approval process. So that's something too. Write down that on your list of questions. Have you run their credit? Actually can't get through AUS if you haven't run their credit. So if they say yes to AUS, you're good. But we do have some things there. We have some credit repair services. We've got Wayfinder that's built into our system that will give them little tips and tricks to get their score up. to get to qualify. If they're close and they can do that, they have the means and the ability to do that. Or we have friends, I usually use Bolt Credit that can help them with long-term credit repair, but then again, we're having the conversation with you saying they're not ready. We cannot give them a pre-approval at this time. But we'll give you an idea of how long that could possibly take. But the credit is, it's not guaranteed either. They need to be doing all of those things. And we'll talk to them about report dates, when the creditors report, and then we pull the report the next day to get it updated. So we're having those conversations with them. The other thing, slows the loan down. Appraiser required repairs on the home. Anybody have that happen ever? FHA happens, kind of it. But occasionally it can happen on conventional as well. So there are some things that's why we want to have. That's also something you're talking to the lender about, or you're thinking about when you're writing the contract for how long. Look at the property. Think about if there might be a broken window or something like that, and it might take a little bit more time. There is a possibility of a repair being requested. And then if you think that that's the case, write a longer.
What would be a conventional required repair? I've never had conventional.
I understand.
It's possible.
It is
Maybe
possible.
habitability or
Have you ever had a conventional repair?
No.
I know Mike was talking about when last time you did this together, but I can't remember what he said.
I had one on the bathroom.
A bathroom?
Yeah.
Is that the floor was like falling?
No, it was a client I was working with, and they were all good except for the bathroom. The pipes were all exposed behind the shower. It worked. They're like, this doesn't work, this doesn't look finished.
Someone's got
It's gotta be pretty bad.
It's a
Yeah,
moist
it was
water
bad.
problem.
It was bad.
it. I stayed in.
It was a great house. Unless you're looking to move in right away.
That's a good way of putting that. This one is the second biggest frustration for lenders, other than clients taking time shopping around, is the thinking they have plenty of time to get us things. So again, we're having that education right up front. I know you think you have 30 days. But we have these deadlines to meet, and the faster you get us, the more likely we can meet them. And if you take 2 or 3 days, sometimes it adds up. Taking too much time on the front end causes fires on the back end. And so a lot of communication. I know you're at work during the day, but we still need this because you want to buy a house. So yes, your lender is going to be calling you in the middle of the day when you're at work sometimes, or we'll text, or we'll figure out, and we'll let them know. We'd always talk with them, what's the best way for us to communicate with you? Is it text? Is it email? Is it phone calls? Because we are going to need things, and we are going to need them quickly. And it can't all be done at 10 o'clock at night on our behalf. So we're having that conversation with them. Let's see, finding and trying to find another lender halfway through the process. That is going to kill the deal most of the time, because sometimes people can close things fast, like we can, but halfway through the deal and you've got FA and A appraisal deadline coming up, and that's just really challenging. So if you have that same conversation with them that we do, and let them know we're all a unified team, you and your lender, and everybody has their backs, and we're all working together to make sure this happens. And you're letting them know, please don't go and do these things, or it can kill your deal and you can lose your money. You can not just lose your house, but you can lose your earnest money. Let's see, agent tells the client the lender shouldn't be asking for whatever they asked for. Again, let's be on the same team here. We're always, whenever I'm talking to someone, I'm always building the agent up tremendously. And so it actually helps the process a lot if you guys do the same thing for your lender, instead of commiserating with them and saying, oh, I know, I can't believe they're asking for that. That actually just aggravates the problem. Some people do that. I've seen people do that because they think it's a bonding thing, but it actually hurts the process, and then they don't get the stuff in. And yeah, and they think that's being helpful in bonding, but it actually hurts the whole process, right? Holding on to the earnest money check, not depositing it, things like that. If the home doesn't appraise for enough, so knowing how to negotiate with that, being prepared for that ahead of time. The identity theft, well, we take care of that ahead of time, so that's why we pull the credit up front. We're asking them all of these questions. That's why you want to make sure whatever lender you're working with has done all of that, because that will also halt everything that is not a quick fix. Even though they say they have the proof of that, and this is when I dealt with, they had the proof of it, but it still has to show up on the credit. So that's not a super fast fix. It can be done, but it takes a little bit of time. So don't be doing that when you're under contract. The condo and getting things from the condo. One of my second or third deal was that way. It was mid-February and the HOA had not done their budget for the year yet. And because it was mid-February, they're requiring this. So it took a little bit of time, and it's not so easy to get a hold of the people in the HOA. You have to go through the homeowner who puts in an item request, and that can take 2 to 3 days, and just to find out it's not available yet, and it just takes some time. So give us that time to get what you need. Where are we at? Oh, there we go. And this is also something you don't want to deal with, a busy lender that gets slammed with tons of files. That's why I know most of you tell us you don't prefer banks and credit unions, because that's more the experience there, because they just check out at 5 and they don't care. They don't get to know your client. It's not personal to them. And so that's something that can slow things down as well. You guys have any questions? Or should we just start eating?
Hey, let's give you a big round of applause, Carol. We do need one more word, and that will be elite. ELITE, like the elite team of Security Home Mortgage right here, guys. This has been a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Debbie for teaching, and you guys will reach out to you, let you know when your hours have been banked. We really appreciate you taking the time to further your education. You know, we're not expecting you to do our job. That's not the whole point of this whole lesson here. It's just to empower you with more arsenal, more ammo that you can pull out. The more you know, the more they're going to trust you. And the more they trust you, the more they're going to trust us. And together, we're a team. You're only as strong as the people that are on your team. So make sure you surround yourself with people of excellence. And we wish you all the best. On behalf of all of us here at the Elite Team, you guys rock. Thanks for being here. Now, we get a great, before you go, you guys, we couldn't have lunch without our great sponsor who's here today. We want to invite our friends from Edge Homes to come down here. Let's give them a big round of applause. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yep. I'm on that front.
Well, hi, everybody on Zoom. Hi, everyone in the room. Hello. I only caught like the last 30 minutes of the CE class. I wish I had just come to the whole thing, because that was awesome information.
Yeah, good stuff.
Because I agree, the more you know and the more you can partner with your lender, the better experience your clients will have. That is for sure. I am just here to give everyone lunch. I'm sorry that you guys in Zoomland won't get it, but everybody prepared salads over there. And then I'm just here basically to talk about our seller credit that I talked about at our event that we had a couple of weeks ago. We're giving a 3% seller credit right now to our buyers. We have dropped pricing anywhere from 10 to 20% on our homes, and condos are closer to 20. And so it's made things super competitive again, which is awesome. I actually had my best month ever at Edge this last month, and I've only been there a year, you know, for another builder. But anyway, so I think that price drop has really helped kind of bring some life back into the market, which is awesome. And then I've got new construction that's built and ready to go. I've got new construction that's in the process, which is awesome. I've got some that haven't been built that have been spec'd. And of course, I have new builds if people want single family or townhomes that they want to start from scratch, and condos. But anyway, that's really it. Unless you guys have like specific questions, I'm sure everyone's hungry.
So they can reach out to you to find out about what's coming up. You just mentioned several different things.
Oh yeah, I know, I do have a lot. So I've got inventory in Harriman, in Bluffdale, in Saratoga Springs, in Lehigh. I've got a really awesome project coming in Mapleton. It's a little ways off, so don't get too excited, but hopefully early 2023. Another project coming in Santa Clara, so in our neck of the woods. It'll be fun down there in South County. And so yeah, you can reach out to me. My name is Janine. Again, I'm a realtor for Edge. My number is 801-836-6666. 6093. Maybe Jeff can send that out. I don't know, but I've got cards for you guys who are here. You don't need to write it down. And I'm just happy to help in any way.
Awesome, thanks, Janine. Hey, guys, that last slide is still up on there, because kind of one of my takeaways is set the proper expectations with your clients when it comes to loans and the process and everything, because most of them only done this a couple of times in their lives, right? You are their guide through this process. You don't want them saying, why didn't you tell me that? Or if I would have known. Those are things you don't want to hear from your client. So guide them through the transaction, keep open communication and work with your team. And thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah. Vacation, I'll see you.
Hey, guys, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you get your keywords sent to Debbie. And I think I answered Kaylee by email. She was asking what the third word was. Okay, guys, love you. Reach out if you need anything.
Thank you.
See ya.